And I should note that we have an acting Chief Executive here today, and welcome Peter Gudsell to the meeting, our Chief Financial Officer. And if we can take the report as read, and I'll perhaps hand it over to you, Peter.
Okay, so the report from the acting CEO was circulated last night. You'll note within there that major issues has been a focus, particularly with the second severe flood event, with the action being taken around, as well as normal day-to-day operations, setting up a task force with a real focus on those short-term temporary solutions in that space. The future of the red zone has become a public activity, and council staff will be part of the joint communications and engagement team on that. The answers to questions raised at last council meetings and previously is attached for your information. On internal staff matters, organisational updates, you'll note that the new Director of Corporate Services, Brendan Anstis, started on Tuesday, and he is sitting behind us today. Welcome, Brendan. And Mary Richardson will start in her role as Director, Offices of the Chief Executive, on the 2nd of June. The other major internal organisational update would be around the annual staff engagement survey. We have got the high-level results of that annual staff engagement survey, and that shows that 53% of the council staff are engaged, which is a decrease on last year's 66%. This result puts us in the moderate zone for engagement and places us just ahead of the Australasian local government average of 52%, with a level of engagement that puts us at the level recorded before the earthquakes. Obviously, there will be an ongoing piece of work around this engagement result. It's not where we wanted it to be.
Thank you. I thought that I would just pick up on a couple of things. The first is around the flooding. Obviously, that's a huge issue for the council at the moment, and certainly welcome the establishment of a task force to really cut across the different I guess silos within the council organisation to make sure that we've got people with the planning background and with the the delivery background, and people who are involved in that whole stormwater are now collectively working together to make sure that we get that momentum. The areas that we're looking at obviously are areas where there were floor levels breached, and if there were areas that have been missed in this list, we've got the Shirley-Flockton area, Woolston, the Heathcote Valley, Littleton for a slightly different reason, Little River and Akaroa. I don't know if there were other areas that were breached as well, then they will be included in the report. So that's just a summary of where we've got to. But the important thing is to have some certainty for people along two lines. So one is that, and I think this is clear in this report, is that we're not going to be just looking at the long-term engineering solutions, but we're going to be looking for temporary solutions as well. That we can't leave people sitting there for 2 years not knowing how long it's going to be before they can actually deliver. So, and some of those temporary options are being worked through at the moment, and they will be reported in the next 3 weeks, which I think will give people a degree of comfort. Glenn, and then Ali.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wish to ask whether the scope of the report will look at some of the assumptions, and I'm thinking mainly from a communications point of view over, for instance, the 1 in 100 year event conclusion which we have at the moment, whether we're going to look at reframing that to on a percentage basis, for instance, something which has, I know this is about solutions, but I wonder.
I think the framing of some of the discussions around flood risk, people with expert backgrounds and knowledge move easily into language of risk that are not easily explainable. A 1 in 100 year event simply means that there is a 1% chance of it occurring in any year. It doesn't mean that it's only going to happen once every 100 years. So I think the language itself might actually be better better explained. So, and I'm of course not a technical expert in this regard myself, but I know that people are very clear that with climate change predictions that we cannot rely on what are extreme weather events not becoming more frequent. And I think what we judge to be a 1 in 100 year event or a 1% per annum risk of occurring will actually change even in the next 10 to 20 years. So I think it probably is unhelpful to refer to what are technically correct expressions. Our own Building Act refers to a 1 in 50 year event. So I think that we're going to have to start thinking about what that actually means in practice with our changing climate. So it's a really good point to take on board. I think the communications have to be clearer. Yep.
Thank you. Just further to that too, I wanted some clarification on the 1 in 100 year, and I've heard your explanation there based on the amount of rainfall. However, one could say that the rainfall experienced over the weekend or just recently couldn't really be described as heavy. It was sporadic and it was consistent. So I wonder whether the 1 in 100 year measurement at the moment, which might become academic, shouldn't be based just on rainfall, but also how the rainfall reacts with the land and the drainage. Isn't that the issue now? It's not the amount of rain that is falling or the extreme weather event, as we've heard. It's actually how any rainfall reacts on the land and into the drainage system. Would that be fair?
I think it depends on the different areas that we're talking about.
Sorry, I'm referring, I beg your pardon, referring to Flockton primarily.
Yeah, and I think Flockton has a particular set of issues. What I saw in the Heathcote Valley was quite different.
Right.
So I think that, and that's why I'm really pleased that we're going to get individual reports that actually identify what caused the problems in each of these different areas. Because once we have in writing what caused the problems, then we actually know whether we're looking at a quick fix, a longer term engineering fix, and then what the temporary options are to deal with problems in the meantime. Some of the problems are clearly earthquake related. So in the Flockton area, there is no question, but it's not all earthquake related coverage by EQC, for example, because it's not all land damage that's covered by EQC that causes the flooding in Flockton. Yep. The reduction in the capacity of the Dudley Creek is a major cause of the flooding in the Flockton area that is not covered by EQC. So we've got multiple layers of issues that we have to address. I'm not trying to sort of say that, I know people get sick of people saying that it's a complex problem, but it is actually a complex problem. The way that we deal with complexity is to get the different parts of the council and externally Sarah as well. We get everyone engaged in the process of looking at the scale of each individual area to look at how we resolve those problems. I'm feeling very confident that the council has within its capacity the ability to bring forward a report that will address each individual area, and we will know exactly in 3 weeks' time what the decision-making track will be.
Just further to that, though, with regards to external involvement and looking at this problem in the short term and long term as far as the flooding goes, are we involving insurers and EQC in this? There is quite clearly an issue in the area now with regards to repairs being done, with rebuilds being done, and the FMA causing problems. I know of someone whose scoping and building costs have been completely stopped because the insurance company says you're in the FMA. There is no other explanation. Are we including and involving insurers and EQC in the other part of this problem as well?
We will have to because and both EQC and the insurers came to the Flockton meetings, entirely of their own volition, and they want to be in the room. Obviously, they've got issues in terms of their plans around rebuilds and repairs. In terms of what they have to achieve. But I think that the major concern that I have is the ongoing insurability in those areas, and that's something that the council is very determined to keep live, and as a central government. Yanni.
Thank you. I really welcome the idea that we will establish this task force. I think it's really important. We've always indicated that we will look at other areas outside of Flockton, and I think it's really good that we're setting up a discrete piece of work to do that. I know that there's been some concerns raised in the last month, particularly around the fact that Skirt are putting back like for like and not taking into account what's happening in terms of land drainage. Is there anything that that staff have done in the immediate term to basically get Skirt works aligned with possibly some of these either temporary or short to medium term solutions? It just seems like really crazy that Skirt are putting back like for like in areas where we know there's been an elevated flood risk because of the earthquake. And I note in page 152 of the agenda today, the Committee of the Whole has asked for an urgent report back on how the parameters of Skirt can be better aligned with the Natural Environment Program, recovery program, to take into account the natural and environmental hazards, because land drainage is mentioned in that program, but there is a complete disconnect at the moment. So I really want to know if there's any resolution we need to pass or anything that the acting chief executive or whoever's responsible can do. You know, just in the last 2 weeks, I've had 10 start work notices for stormwater stuff that Skirt are doing, which is all going back to as it was on September 4th, rather than looking at the new circumstances.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. What I'd like to do is take that question away and answer it in the next acting CEO's report, rather than answer that on the fly.
We've got a committee of the whole meeting next week.
We're also looking to tackle it, as you said, on the agenda item later on.
Thanks. Can we maybe just ask that report comes back next week? I mean, it is really urgent because it's a huge amount of money that's being spent. Given our financial situation, we cannot afford to be losing the opportunity to spend money wisely. And every day that goes past is another day of lost opportunity. So if we could possibly get that report for the Committee of the Whole next week, that would be appreciated.
So I believe we're asking that question on when we get to the agenda item on page 152.
Andrew.
Thank you. I also welcome the establishment of a task force, and I'm particularly pleased to see areas of concern and urgency identified. The areas in my Banks Peninsula ward that have been severely affected include Littleton, where it's not so much flooding that's an issue, but where land drainage issues have caused multiple landslips. And Little River and Akaroa, where, of course, flooding has been a major concern. I just ask that when the report's written, it clearly identifies what happened in each area and why, and what temporary and permanent solutions there might be. Because, of course, one of the things we want this report to do is to inform public meetings and inform our own decision-making, but also to give a level of confidence to affected residents, who I'm very sure will be pleased to see that we are now doing some work in this area. So, yeah, the knowledge that this work is being done, I think, will give residents a degree of confidence, will inform public meetings and their decision-making as well. So I absolutely welcome the response.
That's good. Yes, Pauline.
Thank you. I also welcome it and would like to just remind councillors and the impending task force that we had the petition from the Edgware Road residents last week. That sits just outside the Flockton Basin area, but it does involve the St Albans Creek, which runs into the Dudley. So if we could just make sure that that is also included. And I'm pretty sure that they are including all the streams and tributaries that run into these rivers, but I wanted to make a note of that. Thank you.
Yep, no, that's good. There was another area that I just want to move on to, which is the Prime Minister's announcement that the public will have a say on the future of the red zone. Just to reflect on what he said, it isn't just about council staff being part of a joint communications and engagement team. The Minister will be meeting with the two relevant mayors, myself and the Mayor of Waimakariri, Ngāi Tahu, and other agencies to design the communication participation process. And I just want to make it clear that in Christchurch that will include the groups that have been set up to really look at the east in terms of the residential red zone, the Avanotakaru network that brings together a range of groups that have been working on, what the potential future of the residential red zone is. obviously our own community boards, Eastern Vision, the Travis Wetlands Trust, the Avon, Heathcote, Ihutai Estuary Trust. You know, there are a number of groups that have been existent for a long time, and others that have emerged in order to participate in or to lead a community engagement. And so I've made that absolutely clear that that's going to be Christchurch's participation in that is going to involve all of those groups in terms of trying to lead the community engagement, because it's a truly exciting opportunity. You know, as the Prime Minister said himself, you know, it's an area of 4 times the size of Hagley Park, and it does present some huge opportunities. But just as important, I was going to say more important, is the opportunity for the infrastructure issues that need to be sorted out for our city as a whole. Road layout, water, wastewater and stormwater networks, and that is what is dealt with first. And so again, this actually ties into the work that's going on with the flood risk, that we have some enormous potential to actually resolve some long-standing issues in relation to the city's flood risk by actually using some of the land that has been taken from residents affected by the earthquakes, and would have been exposed to significant flood risk had they not been red zoned. We have a real opportunity to look at how the roads are laid out, how the water, wastewater and stormwater networks are affected by that, and again thinking about the natural use of wetlands as they lead to the river. In terms of our own stormwater management. It's a truly exciting opportunity, and I know that people don't get excited about stormwater, but I do now, and I think that it's an incredible opportunity for us. So, and again, the community needs to be very much engaged in that. It isn't just a matter for council engineers and Sarah engineers to get together and decide, but to engage the wider community and what that can look like. So I just want to reflect on that, because I think the report probably understated a little bit about the great opportunity that this does present to the city. Yanni.
Thank you. We finally welcome the opportunity now to have some engagement around the future of the red zone. We have been waiting for quite a while, so it's a step forward. But like the previous question, what confidence can we have as a council that the skirt repair program is aligned to the future of the red zone, so that we understand that we're not spending money in areas where actually we don't need to, because we're doing something different? Can I
interrupt you? Because I can tell you that it is holding up the skirt program. That the skirt program has not been able to produce some of the results that they want to produce because they haven't been able to go into the red zone. And so there's no, in fact, we are wasting significant amounts of money by having to maintain services in an area. And I'm not talking about services to residences that haven't moved. I'm talking about roads that are really damaged. I'm talking about some of the infrastructure that cannot be moved. I mean, some of the realignment of roads is so obvious, but that would enable us to move the stop banks back from the river. But Skirt can't do that work until they have access to the residential red zone, and they are providing maintenance in areas that is basically coming off that total spend on the horizontal infrastructure, which I think is an absolute waste of money.
Yeah, so if that's the case, what's the time frame for getting the future plan for the red zone? Do we know when? No. All the Prime Minister announced was that he hoped that the community engagement would be able to commence in May. If that's the case, then we have to make urgent decisions around the access to the red zone for the stormwater road layout, wastewater, water networks. So, I guess one thing that would be helpful, and I don't know if that's the intention, are we going to get like a detailed report with what the Prime Minister's kind of announced versus the work that we need to do before that engagement happens, so that we've made our decisions and we're clear about what we need to do in regards to the red zone? Yes. And if so, when is that report likely to come?
Well, all the Prime Minister announced was it was a paragraph in his speech, which you've got. So we will be working with the government on it. All right, are there any other questions on the CEO report? Would someone like to move that it be received? Paul Lonsdale, seconded Tim Scandrett. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.